What good is the general public paying the taxpayers the money of making the FBI a formal law enforcement declaration if the FBI, if their hands is tied to the degree that they can't go all hands on deck towards investigating these types of atrocities? How come? If that be the case, then we're funding a program that we shouldn't be funding pertaining to the FBI. We should defund the FBI and create another entity that can investigate all the way up to the President of the United States or the things that's occurring in the White House. That's the way I feel about it. Defund the FBI, knock the FBI out, don't even use the word FBI no longer, and go to another ABC gesture, maybe international FBI, in FBI or something. I don't know. But if the FBI don't have the power to do this, the $64,000 question is, who does? Who does?
Hillary campaign, right? I don't see how that gets you to either criminality or the type of contacts with a foreign power that raise counterintelligence concerns. So that's you keep asking this question, there's my answer.
Well, let me give you my reply to your answer and we'll get to Senator Lee. In this case, there was no criminal investigation opened. It was all counterintelligence based on a conversation by the Australian ambassador of the United Kingdom with Papadopoulos in a bar, and we got the tapes. And Papadopoulos said on tape, "No, I'm not working with the Russians, that'd be treason." They used that snippet to open up what now is called Crossfire Hurricane in the Mueller investigation. I guess the one thing you're overlooking here is that the Steele dossier was prepared by Christopher Steele, who was on the payroll of the Democratic Party. He was working through Fusion GPS that was being paid by the Democratic Party. He created a document that was a bunch of garbage. The State Department calls over to the FBI and says, this guy wants Trump not to win in the worst way. Bruce Orr and a bunch of other people warned the FBI that the Christopher Steele document is suspect at best. The CIA informs the FBI that it's internet rumor. So this is a situation where if the Clinton campaign in fact created this impression that Trump was working with the Russians through Christopher Steele, who was on the payroll, that yeah, maybe that makes it all make sense. Maybe that explains that this dossier was prepared by a political person, by a person on the payroll that was used to get a warrant against an American citizen. This is the first time I know of that opposition research winds up being used by the FBI to get a warrant against an American citizen, a member of the other campaign. I am very sad that the CIA's information about Hillary Clinton signing off on a plan to link Trump to Russia wasn't looked at, because if you'd looked at it, that may have explained Christopher Steele in the dossier. Senator Lee.
Whenever you have one agency that's confronting another agency that's contrary to each agency, then you have a hypocrisy of basically burning the candle at both ends. Whenever you're burning the candle at both ends, there's not going to be a true form of justice. Because one isn't going to go up against the other. In other words, this is a reflection upon what Christ said of one hand not knowing what the other hand is doing. Once more, a divided house will not stand. A divided house will not stand. And if you can't understand that this causes a major division pertaining to the judicial justice system, something is obviously wrong here. If you can't comprehend that this type of hypocrisy is not only lethal, it's not only wrong, but it's unfair for whoever stands for true justice to begin with pertaining to the American people. There has to be some sort of reasoning between these agencies of knowing that they're both on the same side, and though one may have correlated a little different than the other, it still is going to have the same intentions once it goes through its process at the end of the game. That's not what happened here. There was favoritism that went on. There was political cherry picking that went on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. According to Bill Priestup's handwritten notes from the January 24th, 2017 meeting, a meeting that you, Mr. McCabe, attended, the FBI's strategy with General Michael Flynn was to, quote, get him to lie so we can prosecute him or get him fired. And also, quote, if we can get him to admit to breaking the Logan Act, give the facts to the Department of Justice and have them decide, close quote. Mr. McCabe, is it typical for leadership at the FBI to strategize as to how to get subjects of an investigation to lie, as in this case, in an informal interview without counsel present?
Sure it is. It's called high pressure.
Well, I can't, I'm not going to speak for Mr. Priestup's notes, but
No,
I can tell you.
I'm just asking you
that
whether it's typical.
I can tell you that it is common to discuss before an interview the many different ways that that interview might turn out. And one of those ways is that the subject or the witness you're interviewing might be deliberately deceptive. And so it is common to think through how you would handle that.
Okay. Now, in his 302 interview, Peter Strzok stated, quote, before the interview, McCabe, the FBI general counsel, and others decided agents would not warn Flynn that it was a crime to lie during an FBI interview because they wanted Flynn to be relaxed. And they were concerned that giving warnings might adversely affect the rapport, close quote. Is it normal for FBI leadership to instruct agents to not inform interviewees of their rights in investigational interviews?
There is no requirement to tell any witness or interviewee that it is a crime to lie to the FBI. It is very common for agents and their supervisors to discuss how they're going to handle these different elements of an interview before they go in and do it.
But I assume you don't do that all the time, and one of the reasons you don't do that all the time is because you rely on informal interviews. You get a lot of information out of them. And if you're constantly warning them in advance and making them feel like they're targets, that's a problem. But it also can become a problem, and it invariably does, when people in an informal interview are lured into an informal interview with one set of expectations that you've created for them, and you routinely dash them. Now, when scheduling the January 24th meeting with General Flynn, you threatened to elevate the issue of Flynn's call with Kislyak to the Department of Justice if he appeared at the interview with counsel. Statements made by General Flynn during this very same interview, where you advised him to appear also, were used as the basis for his prosecution. So is it standard practice for the FBI to threaten high-level administration officials if they refuse to appear for interviews without counsel, or at least without somebody from the White House counsel's office?
Well, the premise of your question is absolutely false. I did not threaten General Flynn with anything. General Flynn and I, during a very short conversation, I asked General Flynn if he wanted to have a representative from the White House counsel's office or his own attorney attend the interview. And I simply told him that if that were the case, that I would need the agents to also bring an attorney from the Department of Justice. Yep. General Flynn very quickly replied that he didn't want to bring an attorney to the interview, which is certainly his right, and we proceeded in that way.
Okay. I'm looking at your notes regarding your conversation with General Flynn. Quote, I explained to Lieutenant General Flynn that my desire was to have two of my agents interview him as quickly, quietly, and discreetly as possible. He agreed and offered to meet with the agents today. We had some discussion about timing and ultimately agreed to conduct the interview at his office in the White House at 14:30 this afternoon. I explained that I thought the quickest way to get this done was to have a conversation between him and the agents only. I further stated that if General Flynn wished to include anyone else in the meeting, like the White House counsel, for instance, that I would need to involve the Department of Justice. He stated that this would not be necessary and agreed with the agents without any additional participants. To me, at least carries a certain suggestion. Now, based on Sally Yates's 302, Director Comey admitted that he would have informed the Obama White House Chief of Staff, Dennis McDonough, if this were occurring under analogous circumstances with President Obama and President Obama's National Security Advisor. So why this disparate treatment? Why would you have one standard where you would inform the Chief of Staff in one instance, but not in another administration?
Hypocrisy. Choosing the lesser of the two evils. Burning the candle on both ends. The right hand not knowing what the left hand's doing. That's the reason why they have two different standards. And what does the agencies usually do? They usually choose the one that's better for the agency that's actually doing the investigation. That way, if plan A don't work, plan B does. Once more, it's not in favor of justice, but it's in favor of the agency that's doing the investigation. That's just about as hypocritical, full of hypocrisy as hypocrisy gets.
Sir, I can't speak for why Jim Comey, what Jim Comey thought about that at the time. I'm not aware of that.
Okay. Mr. McCabe, we've hauled in a few different people.
I'm sure Jim Comey was trying to hold down the heat, and the less heat that you got involved, maybe you'll get lucky and you'll squirm your way through without being scathed or trapped. I'm sure that was his initial reason, his intentions towards not wanting to involve more and more people. Once more, whenever you're trying to capture the fox, sometimes the fox himself becomes pretty witty in knowing that he's being hunted.
Well, to talk about the Crossfire Hurricane investigation in front of this committee. And so far, we haven't been able to get a single straight answer to some critical questions, including who in leadership of the FBI or the Department of Justice knew about the serious flaws contained in the Carter Page FISA warrants before the original application was submitted on October 21st, 2016. Also, who knew by the time that the first renewal was submitted on January 12th, 2017? Or how about the second renewal on April 7th, 2017? And most importantly for today's purposes, who knew when you signed the third renewal on June 28th, 2017? Nobody seems to be telling us anything. Now, back in August, Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates told this committee that she had no idea where critical factual errors in the initial Carter Page application. She had no idea that those were there. A few weeks ago, Director Comey told this committee that he didn't know about the errors when he signed the initial applications and the subsequent renewals. And now you've told this committee what is your answer to these questions? Tell me what you were aware of as of those dates.
Well, I've been pretty clear that I was not aware of the errors that are identified in the IG's report or any other errors that were present in the package that I signed in June of 2017.
Mr. Chairman, my time's expiring. Could I get an additional 2 minutes? I think I can wrap this up in that time. Thank you. Now, you've stated in your written testimony that, quote, FISA remains one of the most important tools in our country's efforts to protect national security. The FBI is the custodian of that tool. I fully support every effort to ensure that the FBI's use of FISA maintains the high standards of the court and the American people that they demand and they deserve. Well, that's all well and good. I like the statement as far as it goes, but I would note, Mr. McCabe, that I've heard this line before. Not just once, I've heard it more times than I can possibly count over the last 10 years while I've been sitting on this committee. In fact, your comments are nearly identical to those that I've heard from FBI official after FBI official, from basically every FBI official who's testified in front of this committee on this issue. Trust us. We're the good guys. And we need these secret surveillance authorities in order to keep you safe. And furthermore, you don't need to worry about them. These aren't the droids you were looking for, because we're the good guys and we require a high level of approval. Well, it turns out, Mr. McCabe, none of the people involved in the high level of approval, those same people who have told me over and over again over the last decade that they were reviewing them and that's why it was okay, none of them can answer these questions. So that's why we're here again. So I'm asking you now, how are we supposed to tell the American people to have confidence in the secretive FISA surveillance process if, mind you, this is hard to believe, no one in FBI leadership, no one in leadership of DOJ or FBI wants to admit that they were aware of serious flaws in a very high-profile investigation? And what assurances could you possibly give us that the FISA applications targeting everyday Americans, just U.S. citizens, not foreign suspected terrorists, and not even high-profile government officials in the United States, are subject to any stricter scrutiny? They simply can't be. The fact is, the FISA process must be reformed. We can't ask them.
And once more, I was subject to that type of scrutiny. A matter of fact, in 2009, whenever the event happened out in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, I was immediately put on a, can't think of the name right now, it's called a FBI something. I was put on that search bar. I had the feds follow me to my niece's house or my cousin's house out in Jefferson City, Missouri. They was following me up in Kentucky whenever I come back here in 2009. Whenever I wound up leaving from here because my father attacked me with an axe towards trying to cut my head off with an axe, I wound up going down to Memphis. And while I was down in Memphis, I had three occurrences within a 72-hour period of being on the watch list. But they did not have enough evidence to hold me, and because they didn't have enough evidence to hold me, they had to release me every time. I went on down to Atlanta, dropped my stuff off in Kennesaw, Georgia, or it may have been Douglasville. I think it was in Douglasville at the time. I dropped my stuff off, and while I was down in the Atlanta park going to watch the 4th of July firework display, I was shaken down by the SWAT team of the investigations of the GIB that basically held me in confinement, give or take, for about 4 or 5 hours, during which time that the 4th of July firework display was displayed for the general public on 4th of July in 2009 there in Cinnamon Park, Georgia. Beyond that point, they was steadily watching me. They was coming to my workplaces. They had found out where I was worshiping at in a church there outside of Kennesaw, up by a small little airport. They're at a facility, and I was basically on this gridlock with the FBI of them influencing and trying to ruin my life, simply because of an illegitimate charge that went out in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, that I had threatened one of their officers. Since then, in 2009, this is 20 and 20, I just had Pat Burns call me, which was one of the Oklahoma investigation teams pertaining to dropping off a bomb in the back end of my truck. I just had him call me. Me and him are on good standards of communicating with each other pertaining to the election this year. A matter of fact, we stay in constant contact, me and Mr. Pat Burns, that used to work for the Oklahoma authorities there pertaining to the U.S. Marshals, that's now working outside of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, in a city council in another smaller town. So yes, these FBI agents does not pull no strings whenever it comes to them mismanaging and ruining people's lives that are all in conjunction with Homeland Security, Secret Service. If you take them, put them in a bag, shake them up, and drop them out, they're all going to come out the same color. They're all going to come out the same because they're in interest of protecting themselves rather than protecting the general public or protecting the judicial justice system. That's where this is all going. That's exactly where this is all going. And I've got proof of everything and what I just got through discussing from my cousin in Jefferson City, from what went on in that land between the lakes up in Kentucky, to me being attacked by my father because I had to call the sheriff's department and they brought in an ambulance out here to check me out. I'm pretty sure that's on file somewhere in 2009. And then I don't know about the deals that happened in Memphis. I don't know if I can prove that, but I can prove of what went on in Atlanta towards public domain as far as open records of what went on down there in 2009 whenever they captured me and put me in a paddy wagon, give or take, for about 4 hours while I sat and looked at the firework display through a little bitty peeky hole. Through a little bitty peeky hole while they basically went through my truck inside and out, making sure that there was nothing harmful or deadly in the truck. In the meantime, the truck itself had, give or take, probably about $20,000 worth of tools that I was begging them not to drop them off right there in the parking lot, because if they did, I know that I would be robbed for everything that I was worth. Fortunately, they didn't drop the tools off and just leave them spread all out all in the parking lot. They just went through it piece by piece.
Americans to continue to give the federal government this enormous amount of unsupervised scrutiny and discretion, only to have it abused by this, and only to have the people who are accountable for it say they have no...
Have it abused. See what he said? Of having it abused. Back it up. Listen to it again.
idea.
Back it up. Back it up. Back it up. Right there.
They simply can't be. The fact is, the FISA process must be reformed. We can't...
Must be reformed. Must be reformed.
Can't ask Americans to continue to give the federal government this enormous amount of unsupervised scrutiny and discretion, only to have it abused by this, and only to have the people who are accountable for it say they have no idea how these things happen. I can assure you that your abuse of the FISA process has cost you the trust of the American people. That in and of itself is tragic, and I don't use those words lightly. What's even more tragic is that they've cost a great agency, one that I worked with as a federal prosecutor, and for which I've had great respect, and where there are still countless hardworking, honest men and women who earn the FBI's good name every day. Their reputation has been sullied, and the Bureau's ability to do its job has been seriously impaired by these missteps. That's why this structure must change, and I won't rest until it does.
Mr. McCabe, would you like to respond?
Sure. So I certainly can't respond to things that other people have said to Senator Lee over the last 10 years. I do agree with you that this process, the IG's oversight, the report that they delivered, has uncovered that there are problems with the way, potentially, with the way that the FBI is handling its FISA responsibilities. I think I'm fairly confident in saying that this experience has exposed, to me at least, that we have been overconfident in the process that we've been using for years. We've been overconfident in in the oversight that we've been subjecting each FISA package to. And I think that we need to go back and very, thoroughly look at how do we change that process to ensure that the errors and the omissions in these packages that we now know about don't happen again. I agree with you in that respect, Senator.
It won't change. We have to change it. It's the law that's the problem. It gives an unfair amount of discretion to human beings who have proven time and again they can't be trusted with it. Thank you.
Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, let me just...
I'm Jillian Turner. We have been listening in on testimony from former Deputy Director of the FBI, Andy McCabe. He's talking to the Senate Judiciary Committee about his role in the 2016 to 2017 investigation called Crossfire Hurricane. That's when the FBI opened an active investigation into alleged ties between President Trump's then campaign and Russian government officials. Now, in this testimony,
What I was trying to say a while ago was pertaining to a net that they use in their federal investigations, to where they contact agencies basically all over that region, and in that net, various agents take it upon themselves, whether or not the person that they've brought interest to is guilty or not guilty. And if this agent decides that this person is guilty, they would be willing to just about do anything to bring this person down. That way it puts stars in their hat and it makes them look good in front of the agency, and that way maybe they can get promoted and go up a link pertaining to their promotion, go up in their job performances as far as being promoted into a higher level of government. That's what these agents does once they have made up their minds that the individual that they're looking for is guilty, and if I can capture them, it's going to put stars in my hat pertaining to me being the agent that actually captured them. So once you go through this grid net that's been cast, anything can happen to you from A to Z. Because once more, the people that's involved in this particular agency can be upfront and 100%, and they can be legitimate, or they can be just as bad as the people that they're trying to go after as far as being illegitimate. In other words, once they brand you or mark you, it's very, very difficult to come out of that net to say, you know what has went on here is totally illegitimate. I have been a victim in all of this, beginning with the 9 tapes that circulated into the White House in 1988 during Ronald Reagan's administration, not counting the telephone call that happened in 1983 in regards to the Antichrist. If you can take the dots and put them together, piece for piece, and promote your testimony or promote your case, maybe there will be somebody out there that will pay attention to what you're talking about, especially whenever you compare apples to oranges, and you got this going on right now in regards to high-ranking officials up in the White House. There has to be somebody that overlooks the overlookers. There has to be somebody that investigates the investigators to make sure that the system is clean, to make sure that the system is fair, to make sure that every T has been crossed and every I has been dotted pertaining to the legitimacies of these agencies. If not, these agencies are running wild. They're running wild, and they can go just as quickly and easily to the far right as they do to the far left. And it's really, really sad, because God only knows how many people have been incarcerated by various agencies all over this country who are basically doing time now for crimes that they either should have got a lesser time for, or they possibly shouldn't have got no time at all for. It's really, really sad whenever you have the pot calling the kettle black, to the degree that now the people that's supposed to be out cleaning the garbage have basically turned into the garbage. Good luck to all of us. Coming from the Windmill Ministries here at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255. God bless America, and shalom.